So we are beginning the program. Per the activities outline, we will receive remarks from CDD, FCDO, and from the presidency. Then we will have the presentation of our findings. Then we will discuss the findings and how we can influence policies. Then we will end the activities for the day by 12:30 p.m. So I invite Frederick Edujamfi, who is the Director of Programs and Operations at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD-Ghana, to give us the opening remarks.
Honorable Nana Oye Bampo Ado, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Office of President and Special Guest for today's event. Mr. Huma Nuruzi, Head of Political and Governance Team, FCDO. Members of the Constitutional Review Committee, colleagues from civil society organizations, friends from the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the board and management of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you. It is both a pleasure and a privilege to join you at this National Multi-Stakeholder Forum, organized to disseminate the findings from our nationwide town hall series on citizens' expectations of the new government. This initiative is part of a broader effort to deepen democracy and promote inclusive governance by ensuring that the voices of ordinary citizens across gender, age, geography, and ability inform national development priorities. The nationwide town hall meetings held in 12 regions of the country were designed to solicit views from a wide cross-section of Ghanaians regarding their most pressing expectations of the new administration. These conversations, organized with support from the Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Office, are particularly timely given the renewed interest in constitutional and local governance reform in the current political climate. We are pleased that today's forum brings together key actors, policymakers, development partners, civil society, and citizens to reflect on what we heard and how best to respond. We are hopeful that the findings and recommendations emerging from these dialogues will enrich ongoing efforts at constitutional review, particularly as they relate to accountability, local government reforms, decentralization, and the delivery of public services. The perspectives shared by women, youth, persons with disabilities, and other marginalized groups underscore the need for a more inclusive and accountable democratic process. We wish to express our deep appreciation to all our partners, especially the FCDO, for supporting this initiative. We also thank the many citizens across the country who participated enthusiastically and candidly shared their hopes and concerns. As we listen to today's presentation, I encourage all of us to consider how we can individually and collectively contribute to building a more responsive, inclusive, and accountable governance framework. Thank you, and I wish us all a fruitful engagement.
This activity was supported by the FCDO, so I would like to invite the head of their political and governance team, Homan Norozi, to give us a remark for this event. Homan.
Thank you. Director for Programs and Operations, CDD Ghana. Director of Policy Engagement and Partnerships, CDD Ghana. Honorable Nana Ampo Ado from the Presidency. And may I also recognize the Executive Director of Transparency International Ghana with us today. Good morning, everyone. My name is Human Nuruzi. As announced, I head up our governance and political team in the British High Commission, Accra. And it's my honor to represent the British High Commissioner, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, at this event today. I'm grateful to the Executive Director and the team at CDD for such an honor. We're particularly grateful for the level of efforts put into this initiative to promote citizens' participation in governance. By this initiative, Ghanaian citizens in remote areas who have no chance of necessarily being involved in the debate on democracy and governance across the country have been given platforms to have their voices heard. Our support forms part of our commitment to promote effective governance and deepen democracy through the Ghana Governance Programme administered by the British High Commission in Accra. And may I please recognize my colleague, Clara Ose, who's sitting there, who's the Programme Manager for the Ghana Governance Programme, and our colleagues Richard Ado and Richard Doro sitting over there, who also work on the programme. We believe that democracy is not just about holding free and fair elections, but also about effective governance that enables active citizen participation. The UK is pleased to be contributing to Ghana's Open Governance Partnership priority of increasing citizens' participation in governance. Ghana's 5th Open Government Partnership National Action Plan commits to promote citizens' participation in governance, including enhancing women and persons with disabilities participation in politics and local governance. Like Ghana, the UK believes that citizens' participation in governance is important as it allows individuals to be part of decision-making processes and activities that affect their lives and society as a whole. This is a fundamental aspect of democratic governance and ensures that voices, perspectives and interests of the people are considered in shaping policies, making decisions, and addressing societal needs. The British High Commission had the opportunity to participate in some of the regional consultations and were moved by how well-informed citizens of Ghana are and their enthusiasm to shape policies and politics. This was a reminder that citizens know what they want, and as a development partner, our role at the British High Commission is to help create spaces for them to engage and influence policy decisions. The Open Government Partnership commitments are not just the responsibilities of government of Ghana, but also civil society. The UK believes in the significant role of civil society organisations can play in propelling a democratic and just society. We are aware about the significant role civil society in Ghana have played and continue to play to influence changes in law and approaches to ensure the rights of all persons, and especially those of vulnerable members of our societies, are promoted and protected. We are proud of the work of the CDD for taking responsibility to provide platforms for every citizen to become active participants in Ghana's democracy. And we are proud to have been partners with you on this journey. So congratulations, CDD, and all of you here today, and all of those that have been part of the consultations over the period. As a friend of Ghana, the UK is ready to support you in the best possible ways to contribute to deepening Ghana's democracy. Thank you very much.
We have our special guests, and I would like to call my colleague Daniel Salome to introduce our special guests for this occasion.
Good morning, everybody, and you're welcome once again. Since she's our special guest, I needed to come very prepared, and so permit me if I read from my computer. So, Honorable Nana Oyebampo Addo is currently the Deputy Chief of Staff. She's in charge of administration. In 2022, she was appointed by the World Bank as a member of the World Bank Advisory Council for Partnership for Economic Inclusion. She is, in fact, a human rights lawyer in Ghana with over 30 years of experience in court practice, human rights advocacy and litigation, gender, governance, and social protection. Honorable previously worked with government as a gender minister, as a minister of gender, children, and social protection, and with civil society as the regional coordinator for the Africa office of the Commonwealth and Human Rights Initiative. As a leading member of Ghana's civil society movement, she coordinated advocacy for the passage of bills and acts, including the RTI bill, Domestic Violence Act 2007, Human Trafficking Act, and the Disability Act. At the regional level as well, she was part of the CSOs that advocated for the adoption of the additional protocol to the African Charter on the Human Rights, on the Rights of Women, sorry. As a cabinet minister, she led the creation of a formal social protection system in Ghana and created a national household registry for social protection, the first ever in West Africa. She strengthened the Ghana legal and policy framework for gender, children, and social protection by leading the adoption of 5 key policies and operational plans. They include gender policy, social protection policy, child and family welfare policy, justice and the school feeding policy. Honorable is passionate about human rights protection, women's rights, governance, transparency, accountability, and the protection of key populations. Ladies and gentlemen, she's the lady of the moment. Can you please take the stage?
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Happy to be back at a program with CDD. Thank you. The head of the political and governance team of the British High Commission, Human Nuruzi, the chair and members of the Constitutional Review Commission, distinguished civil society groups and colleagues of CDD, and distinguished guests and partners in governance. Good morning to you all. A few days ago, I had the privilege, together with some of you here, of meeting at the presidency where the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, met with several representatives of various civil society organizations. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the formation of a governance advisory council. This was a key pledge of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama from his 2024 campaign, and it was basically, or is basically, to strengthen transparency and transform governance in Ghana. At the end of the meeting, a senior presidential advisor for governmental affairs, Dr. Valerie Sawyer, was tasked with partnering with civil society to establish this council. This council will comprise civil society organizations, religious leaders, traditional authorities, the academia, labor unions, and citizens. It will serve as an independent watchdog that will be tasked with producing annual non-partisan reports on the state of governance, on the state of addressing corruption and human rights in Ghana. We are hoping this report will guide governance performance reviews and corrective policy actions, ensuring that our democracy remains vibrant and accountable to the people of Ghana whom we serve in governance. In the same spirit of reflection and accountability, I was honored to deliver a keynote address during the information dissemination session of the 2024 Public Opinion Research Report that was commissioned by agencies under the Office of Government Machinery a few weeks ago. And this session reminded us of an essential truth, and it is that governance must be people-centered. And public feedback mechanisms like this should no longer be optional or sporadic. They must be a permanent feature of our democratic practice. They must ensure that every voice, especially from the grassroots, is represented in the national policy conversations. This government is also demonstrating its resolve to address corruption, which the people and we have all said should be prevented and should be reduced. And so we saw the launch of Operation Recover All Loot. This is a case in point, an unprecedented initiative to investigate and recover the proceeds of corruption. And this reflects not just government stance, but also the shifting public expectations around integrity and around justice in governance. In just over 4 months, President John Dramani Mahama has prioritized participatory governance through a series of national fora. The first was the National Economic Dialogue in March, which brought together stakeholders to propose actionable solutions for macroeconomic recovery and growth. Then we had the National Education Consultative Forum, which was launched in February and traveled throughout the country, and which sought to shape inclusive reforms for our education sector. For economic empowerment and for strengthening the private sector, we also facilitated and organized the Kwewu Business Forum in April, and this also focused on empowering entrepreneurs and strengthening the private sector. These fora are not just symbolic, but they are strategic platforms that embody government's renewed social contract with Ghanaians. This is one that values dialogue, that values transparency, and that is focused on results that will ensure that the people's welfare is at the center of governance. Furthermore, on January 30, 2025, the President inaugurated the Constitutional Review Committee. This committee is chaired by Professor Kwesi Prempeh. It is an 8-member committee that is critically reviewing the 1992 Constitution to align it with contemporary governance needs and the citizens' aspirations. I'm happy members of the CRC are here with us. Please let's clap for them for the good job that they're doing. Their work is guided by insights from previous reviews and will be enriched by broad citizen consultation. We are all eagerly looking forward to the results and the report from the CRC. In 142 days, this administration has indeed taken decisive steps to bring governance closer to the people. And this is a process, and this is a continuum, and that's why we're happy CDD has also commissioned and is also going to tell us the results of their research. This event today, spearheaded by CDD-Ghana, one of our foremost governance think tanks, marks yet another important milestone. These engagements and today's report demonstrates how citizens' voices and evidence-based insights can and should directly inform policy. The government takes this data seriously and will continue to work with civil society to ensure that our governance processes are not only inclusive, but accountable and effective. So thank you very much for this event today. We all look forward to fruitful, insightful discussions that will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nana Oyebanfo Addo. Before we go on to the presentation, that gives the findings from our town halls, I would like to acknowledge the various institutions that are present at this event. We have a representative from the Ministry of Education. We have representative from Transparency International. The members of the Constitutional Review Committee are here. We have members from the Ministry for Local Governments. Representatives also from NALAC are present. We have reps from the Birth and Death Registry. We have reps from the US Embassy. We have representative from IDEC. We have a rep from the National Youth Authority. We have a representative from the Royal African Generational Thinkers. Then our supportive partner, FCDO, they are also present here. So I would like to invite Dr. Kojo Asante, who is the Director of Policy, Engagement and Partnership at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD-Ghana, to give us the findings from our town halls.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and acknowledge all of our guests who have joined us today. I see our senior fellow, Prof. Chua, who I haven't seen for a while. So I'm glad that you are here and you're able to make it for this event. Because Prof. Chua was actually one of the facilitators, I think in Kumasi and somewhere else, I think Sujani or so. So really good to be here. Okay, we are also live on Adom FM and Joy FM, so that those who are not here in the room will be able to reach us. All right. Okay. Ready. I have to. Yeah. This is going to be. Where am I pointing? Okay, so this is the citizen expectation of the new government, findings from post-election town hall forums. We wanted, initially we were going to produce the report and then share it with you, but given that this is a forum where we bring everybody together, we wanted to hold on with the draft report and maybe use it also as some sort of validation and any additional input so that the final version, when it's printed, would have, you know, the endorsement and the input of everybody. And then we'll go back to the presidency and hand it over to Nana or the president himself, so that when we are referencing it, we know that you have it with you. The outline for the presentation, so the background to the town hall forums, the objectives of the town hall forums, our methodology, and then we'll talk about the findings, and then we'll draw some conclusions. So, difficult to see from here. In terms of the background, we didn't just decide that we should go out and have town halls because it's fun to go around Ghana and have town halls. We've been reflecting on the whole process between elections and the governing process. I think everybody says that we just treat our democracy as a democracy of just elections. After elections, everybody go home, right? And we've seen certain patterns over the years. So even when, depending on what the results of the elections, sometimes there is either an incumbent party is not, is the kinds of interpretation they give to their mandate becomes the problem. So it doesn't matter if even you win by 1 vote, the way in which you couch your mandate can determine the tone of the governance that you set at the beginning. So one of the things we wanted to do with this exercise was trying to help that government to understand the mandate that is secured in the 2024 elections. In the NDC's case, a huge parliamentary majority, a two-thirds majority, and basically we haven't had that since, I think, 1996 or so. The president also, in terms of the gap between the first and the second, a huge margin. So how does the government interpret its mandate? Sometimes in the past, foot soldiers or even vigilantes would say, we are the ones that won the election for the party, and therefore we should be prioritized above everybody else. And there's all these internal party challenges that come with it. So sometimes getting a general perspective of where Ghanaians who at the end voted for the incumbent are thinking about what mandate they are giving to the new president. And also appreciating the existing realities after election. So you make manifesto promises, and then when you come and then they give you a briefing, you realize that the things that you want to do, most of them you cannot do, right? And often, because the politics is driven by manifesto promises, you will do it regardless of whether or not it would inure to the benefit of the population, right? So even as citizens, rather say, oh, you said you would do it in your manifesto, so do it, even if we will suffer. It's to also bring that understanding and reality that, no, maybe on this promise, we should even be encouraging government to take it on, right? And really creating space for that kind of conversation to be had. And then getting the priorities of citizens for government, pursue long-term, policy reforms. There are structural issues that we have to deal with. And sometimes manifesto promises are very short-term. How do we create the environment within that 4-year cycle to even tackle some of the big governance reforms? So these are some of the things that were motivating us, that as soon as elections are over, let's get more views about what this mandate is about from citizens. And we use the format of a town hall to do that. In 2017, we actually used a post-election survey to do that same type of work. So this is a little bit different. The first time we're doing a town hall to get to this kind of information. So the overview of the town hall meetings. In the months of February and March 2025, we held 14 town hall meetings, 10 regional and 4 specialized town halls across 12 selected regions of Ghana. These regional town halls were purposefully selected to capture regional diversity, socio-political dynamics, and grassroots perspectives. We've done a map of all the different places that we went to. We also, the 4 specialized ones were targeted at youth, women, PWDs, and the elderly. We had a lot of partners that we work with, and I want to congratulate them for partnering with us all across the country to make sure that we were able to get the relevant citizens to engage on these topics. So Ghana Federation of Disability, Democracy Hub, the Youth Empowerment for Life Ghana, Youth Breed Foundation, Youth Advocates Ghana, Youth Leadership Parliament, the Association of Ghana's Elders, Network for Women's Rights in Ghana, the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition, and then also a special thank you to Multimedia Group, particularly the Adons brand. One of the things that we also tested this time around was how to introduce or utilize local language in the engagement. And really, I mean, if you are there, you would see the difference. When you begin to speak the local language, people feel more relaxed and want to engage. So I think for all of us who are working in this space, and even for government, we have to be very deliberate about how we do the engagement if we want them to be effective. So as we're doing this, just like we're doing it today, we are broadcasting. That's the same way we did with all the town halls where we do live broadcast so that many people who are not there. But the use of local language and ADUM has been very, very helpful with that. Now, the forums brought together a diverse range of participants, civil society, traditional leaders, local officials, and the discussions focused on national issues such as local and constitutional review, anti-corruption, cost of politics, education, state-owned enterprises, electoral reforms, the economy, youth development, illegal mining or illegal small-scale mining, known as Galamsey. And the discussion for the special town halls, were focused for special demographic groups like the youth, the elderly, persons with disability, and women. So even though we had all these general questions, we thought for the specialized town halls, we needed to look at particular issues that concern these demographic groups that we targeted. And I think we'll share more information with you on that. Now, we had a number of objectives for the town halls. The first objective was to provide a platform for citizens and stakeholders to express their expectations of the new government, as I explained, that this is almost like a reminder or reaffirmation, of what the mandate that has been secured. Second, to identify key national and regional priority issues that require urgent attention by the incoming administration. So in a way, you will find some overlaps, right, or between what citizen expectations are and what some of the key priorities are. And then third, to promote accountability and civic engagement in governance beyond the electoral process. We all want to get beyond elections and to the governing process. That's where the bread and butter issues are important. Fourth, to generate a comprehensive report outlining citizen concerns and expectations to be presented to government. Fifth, to facilitate a platform for young people, women, elderly, PWDs, and stakeholders to express their expectations of the new government. And then sixth, to identify key priority issues unique to demographic groups that require urgent attention by the incoming administration. And lastly, to promote inclusive civic engagement and accountability in governance among marginalized groups beyond the electoral process. When you are involved in this and you've been around, you wish that we had a structure, a very systematic way of doing these engagements over and over again. It would really make government easy for government, but even for citizens. So it is one of the main things that we have to think going forward. What should be the governance, the participation framework for citizens? We need something that is structured, that is more systematic than what we do currently. Our methodology. So we've talked about the 14 town halls and 12 administrative regions that, the participants, as you say, broad range of participants. We had a total number of 1,331 participants, if you put them all together. If you break down in terms of age, you had 434 young people, so that's between the ages of 15 and 35. I think most of them were above 18. This statistical service is own categorization, so I don't think we had 15-year-olds. Vera, did we have 15-year-olds? 18 mostly, yes. So we had 434 in that category, 443 between the ages of 36 and 59, and 109 elderly persons who are above 60, and then 132 PWD. So I think it's a fairly good, distribution, and particularly I think because we had these specialized areas, we were able to make sure that it was a good representation. And for gender, male 763 and female 568. There were just a few, I think 23, who didn't disclose gender. And this is just a quick breakdown. We don't have to spend too much time on that. Per region, in terms of the distribution. I mean, generally, for men and women, you know, it's good, you know. And then I think making those specialized forums also helped to make sure that we had the representation that we needed. The approaches to the town hall meeting. So the town hall meeting forums focus on the 10 themes that I talked about, and we'll be going through them. The topics were selected considering their high public interest during the pre- and post-election period. Now, during the town hall forums, each topic was introduced with a short presentation highlighting the relevance and the context of the subject, making use of Afrobarometer statistics, and then we also then presented the NDC policy commitments because basically that was what was going to guide government's sort of priorities. So we wanted to make sure people could also comment on that. Participants were engaged in a discussion based on some selected questions, and then during the specialized town hall meetings, in addition to the above themes, we also selected unique issues that were of concern to the demographic group. And that's where our partners really helped us, because they have been working in the space, so they knew the particular issues that were of concern. So let's go into the findings. So on local government, there were 2 issues that we're looking at. We've been talking about election of MMDCs for a long time. At some point, the issue was whether or not we should allow parties in. So everybody agrees to the election. So that's not been in dispute. But the question was whether we should allow parties in or not allow parties in. In 2019, we attempted it, and then, you know, it was sort of the president withdrew the amendment bill because there was no consensus on that. We didn't want to go and spend time talking about those issues because generally there's a sense that we should just get on with it. If we can even elect on non-partisan basis, we should at least elect. So we wanted to look at some other issues that had come up when we had gone around. We'd done a regional engagement on this matter, and there were some concerns about the way in which districts are currently sort of, you know, organized, and whether or not when you elect, you are going to have the kind of development impact that was needed. So there were 2 issues. One was proposals that, you know, instead of electing mayors in 260, I think there are 61 MMDAs now. So you have a mayor in Adenta, you have a mayor in Oyarifa or Amadina, you have a mayor. I mean, like, you can begin, when you get to the urban area, you can begin to see that. So the first one was, should we just elect in sort of the urban areas? Because doing it across the country, you know, even you can think of cost, there are all kinds of issues about, you know, the fiscal readiness of these districts to function as separate districts. So that one was staggering. And then the second one was amalgamation, which is the Adenta or Yarifa one that I was talking about. That the way we have parceled out our districts, if you say you are going to elect mayor for, it wouldn't make sense in some urban spaces. So for staggering, for those who didn't believe that the staggering was necessary, they thought if the issue is cost, we should just combine the local government with the national election one and have it at the same time so that we save our costs. Now, that has all kinds of constitutional issues, unless maybe the Constitutional Review Commission changes the dates for election so that we can have them, you know, together. But that's people's objection about it was really that if it's cost, then maybe find a different solution. Those who supported staggering thought that we needed to really test the system. You know, issues of logistical challenges, as I said, the readiness. You look at certain districts, you know, adding elections to it, does that really address your development issues? And then there were, so lack of resources. It was argued that certain districts lacked the preparedness for MMDC elections. So they thought that staggering is better. You will learn, you know, if you maybe in your first election, it's only metros that you are going to do the election. In terms of cost, it might also help in dealing with the cost of managing another layer of political actors or and so on. So those were the feedback we got from the staggering. On the amalgamation argument, so argument for amalgamation of district boundaries, the current district boundary system, particularly in urban areas, is inefficient. Many districts in rural areas have limited resources that hinder the delivery of essential services like healthcare, education, and sanitation. Merging smaller districts will enhance service delivery by pooling resources and expertise. So that is for those who say amalgamation works. And I was giving an example of in Accra, you know, if you say you're going to have 33 mayors in Accra. Currently, even when a street light falls, you know, you don't even know who is responsible. So can you imagine adding a layer to the bureaucracy? You know, a mayor that must have his cabinet and all of those kinds of things. You have more people there, but the development issue will still be a challenge. And some people have said, you know, really, the way Accra is now, you can think of Accra, you can parcel it in maybe 4, you know, Accra West, you know, going into your Dansuman, Weja, you know, that area. Actually, people live their lives in that zone anyway. And those who are in the east part, going to Oyarifa, Dodowa, all these kinds of places, Accra Central, which now is like your AMA, there you can have Tema as another. So maybe 4 or 5, it's much more sensible for you to have 4 mayors or 5 mayors in Accra than 33 mayors in Accra. And I think you can say the same for Kumasi and so on. Those who are against amalgamation, amalgamation could weaken governance by making local administration less accessible. You remember that even the creation of regions was driven by the idea that if you have your own region, you are able to access more resources. So people feel that if you take that away, then they will be denied resources. And then financial empowerment efforts should focus on strengthening district capacity by giving them more resources to enhance. So that if the issue is, or some people think the issue is just not enough resources going to local government, and that's why we are not seeing the development issue. And then the rural-urban divide, it may marginalize rural areas by redistributing resources to urban areas, leaving rural communities even more overlooked. And then some people talked about job losses, right? So that's the debate around amalgamation. Proportional representation also came up, which I understand has also come up at the CRC. Citizens are in favor of proportional representation at district level for women, youth, persons with disability, and other marginalized groups in local assemblies. So some fishermen in the coastal districts expressed the need for the representation of fishermen at the local level. Proportional representation should not result in symbolic representation. Competency must be ensured if proportional representation for the marginalized is implemented. And then competition. The percentage for marginalized group is not to be appointed, but they must compete through elections. And so these are some of the sentiments, but proportional representation at local government level is one of the issues that people seem to support. So in terms of recommendations, implementing the election of MMDCs with strong consideration for non-partisanship. So again, in all our engagement, people still want non-partisan election of of mayors. And then consider pilot tests to tackle logistical challenges before nationwide implementation, address resource allocation concerns before considering district amalgamation, particularly in rural and in the northern regions. And then implement proportional representation to ensure seats for women, youth, PWDs, and marginalized groups in the local assembly. I don't think chiefs came into the conversation, even though I know that's one area that has been raised. So that's for local government. For constitutional reform, one of the questions that were posed was the Council of State. Abolishing the Council of State seems to be quite popular for some people. So those in favor of abolishing the Council of State, many participants advocated for the abolition of the Council of State due to its purely advisory role and a lack of impact on governance. So people are basically looking at more recent issues around the Council of State and saying they are not making the difference that it was set up to do. The Council of State selection process was seen as lacking transparency and was often viewed as partisan rather than neutral. Then there was recommendations for reforming. So the other alternative is reforming the Council of State. People want reform of the selection process, limiting the president appointment powers, and for more authority to be given to the Council of State to move beyond solely an advisory role. And the selection of the Council of State should be merit-based. So one of the issues on constitutional reform was on Council of State. The second one was the appointment of ministers from Parliament. So the argument against the appointment of ministers from Parliament, conflict of interest, people are concerned that MPs who are ministers focus more on the government work, leave the Parliament work, and is not therefore not able to check the actions of the executive. And then they raised the separation of powers issue. Participants were concerned that dual roles of MPs weaken checks and balances between the branches of government. So limiting or abolishing appointment of ministers from Parliament to strengthen the separation of powers, improve oversight, and boost ministerial performance. So generally, I think one can say that most people think that this separation between the dual roles of MP and minister should be one of the changes that should happen. We also asked a question around presidential and parliamentary term limits. So for presidential term limits, some participants supported a longer term for policy implementation, while others favored a shorter term to boost accountability. But across all regions, the majority of participants agreed that the current 4-year term with a maximum, agreed to the current 4-year term with a maximum of 2 terms. Some people even said 1 term. It's enough. Then parliamentary term limits. Some participants expressed the view that the term limits should be established for the MPs with a suggestion of a maximum of 3 terms. However, others, particularly participants from Cape Coast, Bono East, opposed term limits, arguing that experienced MPs help maintain parliamentary productivity. I don't know what's happening in Cape Coast, Bono East, but maybe their MPs are doing well, are performing. But so that's the view on those issues. So for the policy recommendation, reform the Council of State to reduce presidential appointment powers and ensure diverse, merit-based, non-partisan selection. Limit or abolish the appointment of MPs as ministers to strengthen separation of powers. Maintain the current 4-year presidential term as we know it. Anti-corruption. So we did talk about oral. So the many participants backed the oral initiative, particularly to recover assets from corruption, and recommended expanding it to districts and communities to curb grassroots corruption as well. There were concerns over the effectiveness of oral. Concerns were raised about oral's risks of politicization, given its lack of posterior powers and overlapping sort of mandate with other anti-corruption issues. So those concerns are there. At the time we're doing it, oral has not been handed over to the Attorney General. So it'll be interesting to see what people still think about the oral issue. So I think the sentiment generally, law enforcement and sanctions on anti-corruption, recovery of stolen public assets, provision of preventive opportunities to combat corruption, and removing presidential immunity from corruption investigation. So that's one of the things people think that the president should not have immunity from corruption, and something that we should be looking at. I think I've gone over this. Education. So the education conversation was generally around financing. I think even at the dialogue, a lot of the conversation was, how are we sustaining the financing of all these commitments that we are making? If you look at what has happened with the free SHS, it's, the impact on basic education, which is like the foundation for, for education quality, is one of the things that people have been concerned about. So the sentiments was that participants from various regions overwhelmingly agreed that basic education should receive greater priority and increased allocation of resources. I don't know if Kofi Asare is here, but or anybody from EduWatch, but I think, I think generally now if you're thinking of allocation percentage, it's almost 50-50 between basic and secondary, right? It's wider. It's widening. Okay, so all right. So the sentiments is that we are neglecting basic education, but how do you build a high rise with a very poor foundation? Right? Basic education suffers from poor infrastructure and a lack of learning materials. Weak foundation at the basic level lead to poor literacy at the basic, and then hinder success in higher education. And then there were concerns about the free SHS policy, the quality of implementation. More funding is needed, and issues need to be fixed before expansion. And then they suggested that parents may need to share more of the cost. So, it's back to government. This idea about what we should do with the free SHS policy. Citizens are saying we should look at the cost issue, maybe, let parents be able to take some of the costs. Improving teacher conditions in rural areas by providing electricity, water, classrooms and materials, financial incentives for teachers posted in rural areas, and the provision of accommodation for teachers near the schools in rural areas, community-based training in teacher education programs. So I think there's a big sentiment that, the distribution of teachers generally across the country in rural areas is a problem, and because there's a lot of the infrastructure that's needed to keep them there is not there, and we need to find a way to close that gap. So the recommendations we put together, we should prioritize resource allocation to basic education, to establish proper learning foundation, address quality concerns in free SHS policy before extending it further, provide comprehensive incentives for teachers in rural areas, including improved accommodation, financial incentives, and resource material. This is not new. This is just the same thing we've talked about for many years. Enhance technical and vocational training to address youth unemployment, strengthen implementation of inclusive education policies for children with disabilities. Elections, cost of elections or cost of politics. And I think one of the discussions was really whether we should have a defined campaign period. There was a general agreement on the need for a defined and limited campaign period. Suggestions for the duration varied from 3 months to 6 months. And the background to this is simple. If, based on the CDD work we have done since 2018, if you have presidential elections that at the minimum is costing you 100 million, and that was like 2022 dollars, $100 million. But that was 2022, so we know it's double now, right? Yeah, so, and then for MP, you're looking at $600,000, you know, including, how they say, nurturing your constituency and all of those things, primaries and elections. When you look at those kinds of monies, it's mind-boggling. So if an MP comes into government and they have to recoup all of that money, there's no way corruption is going to be stopped. So we need to really look at even the time we campaign, because as soon as election ends, already the campaign has started. We know there's already a thank you tour that's going. And the next campaign is already started. In many countries, even in places like Senegal and so on, you have a very set campaign period. You will not see posters and billboards of politicians until the official campaign period starts. But in our case, billboards are left because there's already an intention to campaign for the next 4 years. And they will be there in our medians and so on for the next 4 years. Nobody takes them off. So we need to look at that as well. Participants had mixed views on subsidizing political parties through the Electoral Commission support, because I think party financing has also been an issue, that if almost everybody that is contesting for election, particularly the parties, are governments in waiting, then we shouldn't be treating them as some private entity that organizes their own thing and then they come into government. If they come with the wrong attitude and approach, we are all going to suffer. So the issue is that then maybe the state must contribute to creating this environment where we can reduce the use of money in politics. So there were mixed views. So those who support, some support to political parties, or let's say candidates for elections, they say it would ensure fairness in internal elections. Some suggested abolishing election fees altogether to ensure fairer participation. Those who again says that politicians will misuse the public funds. So they don't think. And some of the ideas that have been put to, that it might not even be that you are giving money to political parties, but that, if the Electoral Commission goes to supervise internal party elections, and that you must make it mandatory that they supervise internal party elections, they don't charge. So that it's almost a subsidy for the party, right?